If we look back for the annals of gaming's history, it for the most part has been dominated by games produced by the AAA gaming studios. Back when games were primarily sold on shop floors and the digital age of gaming was a far-fetched pipe dream, there was no such thing as an indie game. There simply wasn't a clear path for plucky small studios to find their way into the industry, often leading to these developers becoming an asset to larger studios rather than creating their own projects. However, thanks to the dawn of the digital age, the platforms like itch.io and Steam Greenlight that shine a spotlight on up-and-coming projects, and a number of self-starter developing platforms like Unity for example, we are now blessed with a huge library of indie games which not only provide a new innovative wave of gaming mechanics, stories, and innovative features, but also serve as a direct competition to the AAA studios out there, often getting nominated ahead of them for the coveted Game of the Year award across various award ceremonies. Many would argue that indie games are where all the best ideas within mainstream gaming originate from, offering some of the most incredible gaming experiences around. Yet so many gamers don't know what indie games are actually worth investing their time into. Well, I aim to change that. In this video we have compiled a detailed rundown of the best indie games ever produced, therefore cutting down your research time and maximising the time spent getting acquainted with these hidden indie gems. But enough talk, here are our picks for the best indie games of all time. In at number 1 we have Stardew Valley. Let's kick off proceedings with an indie game that breaks the mold in so many respects. While you may think that this game is just a simple Harvest Moon clone, it's so much more. This game is a dungeon crawler, an opportunity for cathartic exploration, a teller of surprisingly dark and poignant stories, and most importantly, it's a game that is infinitely playable due to a brilliantly addictive gameplay loop. This game, created by the wonderful Eric Barone, has found success on just about every gaming platform imaginable, has captivated audiences worldwide, and continues to receive regular updates, all free of charge for the player base, which is a rarity in the world of modern gaming. Stardew Valley is just about one of the most relaxing, engaging, charming, and rewarding games on the market, and it was all created through one man. It's remarkable, and it's well worth your time. In at number 2 we have Undertale. There are some games that come along and do something completely fresh and new within the genre. However, I can't think of any other game quite as brave as Undertale in that regard. Undertale is an RPG title created by Toby Fox, modelled artistically on games like the Earthbound series, and decides to tell a unique story that satirises the world of gaming, teaching you to throw all of the gaming tropes that you know right out the window. The game will teach you to befriend your enemies, to turn combat into camaraderie, and all the while you'll get to witness a killer soundtrack and some of the most innovative solutions that see this title compete with the best games of the era on just a $40,000 budget. We honestly can't do justice to this quirky gem without placing a controller right in your hands. So do us a favour and pick up a pad and play this one. In at number 3 we have Celeste. Since the glory days of the 2000s era for platform games, the examples of standout platformers in the gaming sphere have been few and far between. However, there have been some games that bucked this trend, and one of those was the incredible Celeste. This game has some of the tightest platforming mechanics, caters to speedrunners, offers a challenging experience, and has a fast, addictive gameplay loop, all the while keeping a minimalist, pixelated presentation that you can't help but love. But don't be fooled into thinking that this game is just about the gameplay, because this title captivates you with its wonderful, touching story, which does a lot to raise awareness for depression and mental health, which is not something seen often within the medium of gaming. Once again, you can't help but love and admire that choice. Celeste is a retro and modern platformer, and it's a game that you must check out for yourself. In at number 4 we have Gone Home. Walking simulators have become one of the most popular subgenres of indie games, and this is down to a number of games that blaze the trail for others to follow. Gone Home was one such game that did that over a decade ago. This game sees you return to your empty family home, and in the Greenbrier estate you must find the clues which will shed some light on the things that happened in your absence. The game is ominous at times, but for the most part, it is a challenging encounter that has plenty of emotional moments, joyous highs, depressing lows, and everything in between. Through environmental clues and exploration, this game tells a nuanced and touching story that was years ahead of its time, with a progressive and heartfelt ending. So if you want to see a game that paved the way for other walking sims, you need to check this one out. In at number 5 we have Dead Cells. Before the likes of Returnal and Hades, there were games in the trenches fighting to make roguelike games the popular subgenre that it is today. Before the hype and the mainstream acceptance of this subgenre, Dead Cells was a game doing a lot of the heavy lifting and offering a replayable and addictive title that indie fans took to like a duck to water. Dead Cells is much like Rogue Legacy in that it marries roguelike and Metroidvania elements together, all in the hope of creating an infinitely explorable world. However, thanks to a much more refined set of mechanics, visuals that are a joy to behold, and a procedural generation system that offers much more variety in level design, so much so that you never feel bored or like you've seen the same thing twice, we have to say that this game is truly the one that got people talking about roguelikes, and it's one that you need to try for yourself. In at number 6 we have Pathologic 2. Okay, so this one might feel a little bit out of left field, however, I have always been a huge supporter of this game, and once again, it seems like it's time for me to fight its corner. Pathologic 2 is a remake of the 2005 classic title Pathologic, and in this title, you play as Artemi Burak, who has returned to his hometown after news that his father has died. However, when he returns home, he gets wrapped up in a tightly woven story filled with distrust, warring factions, and a plague that is sweeping through the town. So here's the thing. Pathologic is actually not a fun game, which makes it hard to recommend to players. However, this is intentional, as the game is designed to make the player struggle, feel defenseless, have to compromise their morals to survive, and ultimately make some very hard choices. This game is an incredible, bleak experience that we admit won't appeal to everyone. However, if you can appreciate this game as a work of art, as well as a brutal survival experience, then you just might like what you see here. In at number 7 we have Fez. If you have ever seen Indie Game the Movie, then you should be familiar with Fez. This game sees you play as Gomez, a little guy with a fez who has the power to alter the planes of reality, which for the player means that you can only see a 2D display, but you have the power to rotate the 3D rendered world to open new pathways, reveal new secrets, and ultimately progress through this beautifully realized pixelated world. This game is one of the most intricately designed puzzle platformers in existence, and it's all the more impressive when you realize that this was mostly made by one man, Phil Fish. So if you are looking for something that takes the ideas made famous in Super Paper Mario and tweaks them to great effect, then you should check out Fez. In at number 8 we have Super Meat Boy. Speaking of Indie Game the Movie, Super Meat Boy was another project that was featured heavily in Indie Game the Movie, and of the two, this one is by far the more financially and commercially successful. Super Meat Boy is a hardcore platformer that sees you traverse through increasingly difficult stages, all in the hope of freeing your one true love, Meat Girl, from the clutches of Dr. Fetus. Think of it like your typical setup in Super Mario, only instead of getting hurt by Goombas, there are saw blades, lava pits, evil monsters, and many other hazards placed in your way, all in the hope of stopping you from getting to the end of the stage. This game was the blueprint for fellow entry on the list, Celeste, and has the same relentlessly quick die and play again loop, which makes the game so damn addictive. This game is the dream ticket for any indie lover that wants something that will challenge them and train them in the art of precision and timing, and if that sounds up your alley, this one is essential. In at number 9 we have The Binding of Issac. From the outside looking in, The Binding of Issac may seem like a very simple game that lacks the depth and challenge to hold your attention long term. However, you couldn't be more wrong, as The Binding of Issac succeeds due to its accessibility and its simplicity. In this game you play as Isaac, a child born into a very strict religious family, and due to the horrific treatment by his mother, who considers him to be a demon child, he aims to make his escape, delving deeper into the basement and into more and more dangerous territory. To stay alive, the player must use their tears as a weapon, acquire power-ups and perks, and eventually take on their very own mother to secure their freedom. It's basically a dungeon crawler meets bullet hell game, but an excellent one with lots of charm and dark themes. Plus the game is so arcade-like and replayable that you can play this one on repeat for hours on end and it never gets old. In fact, it's one of my turn your brain off games that I would highly recommend. This is one of the best indie gaming gems and you must experience it for yourself. In at number 10 we have Limbo. Take games like Little Nightmares, Inside, 7th Sector and Among the Sleep. Did you think that these games just sprung up out of nowhere? Well, we hate to break it to you, but none of these games would have existed without the creation of Limbo. Limbo is a dark puzzle platformer that sees the player traverse a silhouette-style world as a vulnerable and fragile child, meaning that if you want to survive, you will have to use all the tools in your tool belt around you and your intellect to overcome hulking monsters. The game has an incredibly ominous atmosphere and dark tone that always keeps the player on their toes. Then in addition, the game manages to tell a compelling story without ever using a word of dialogue, something that at the time within the world of gaming was completely unheard of. Limbo is a fine example of brilliant environmental storytelling, incredible puzzle platform design, and stunning minimalist art direction using a monochrome approach for a less is more effect that really pays off. So if you want to play the game that basically created an entire subgenre in and of itself, be sure to check out Limbo. In at number 11 we have Braid. Braid is a game that would probably be considered one of, if not the first indie game to break the mold and receive critical acclaim without any huge publisher backing. This game takes place in a cute and whimsical land where you play the role of Tim, a man who is attempting to save a princess from a monster. Does that seem familiar? I wonder why. Well, don't be fooled, as over the course of this game, the developer intricately weaves exposition and subtle clues outlining the true motivations of the player character, leading to a dramatic ending that really turns the theme of the game on its head and will leave some players with a sour taste in their mouth in a strangely philosophical and satisfying way, if that's possible. Alongside its interesting narrative, Braid offers a wonderful art direction, puzzle platforming that is challenging but not to the point of frustration, and employs some fun mechanics with time manipulation to help the player progress through each stage. The game was released around the same time as above entry Limbo, and in truth, this one represents a more whimsical and vibrant side of indie gaming. However, both of them are quintessential puzzle platformers, and if you somehow missed this one, you have to get playing. In at number 12 we have Hades. Hades is one of those rare examples where an indie game has so much depth and quality that it defies the odds and gets crowned by many publications as Game of the Year, a feat normally reserved for projects with studios with deep pockets. However, when all the cogs begin to turn and everyone in the team pulls in the right direction, special things can happen in the world of game development, and this was very much the case for Hades, a roguelike game that sees you play as Zagreus, son of Hades, as he tries to battle his way out of the underworld to link up with his relatives in Olympus. However, it's not quite as simple as ordering a taxi. This game offers some of the most incredible, fast-paced combat that you're likely to find in any hack and slash title. The writing is superb, taking Greek mythology and putting a neat twist on it, plus the game's core loop is so addictive that you'll find yourself battling your way out of the underworld long after your first escape. Not to mention, this game looks outstanding, with an art style similar to the likes of Bastion, Pyre, Transistor, and other supergiant entities. So if you want to experience what is perhaps the best roguelike game ever, you need to get into this one. In at number 13 we have Papers, Please. There are some games that represent concepts that on the surface seem so mundane that you couldn't possibly think it would be successful. However, in spite of this, some games provide experiences that are so realistic, so satisfying, and so unique in their approach that they take the mundane and make it incredibly fun. Games like Lawn Mowing Simulator, Unpacking, and Euro Truck Simulator are great examples of this, however, none have quite as much nuance as Papers, Please. In this game, you play as a border control officer and all you do is stamp passports and personal reports to accept or deny access to the country. However, as the situation within the region changes, the game makes things incredibly difficult to manage. The decisions you need to make become much more difficult, and suddenly, the weight on your shoulders feels like such a heavy burden when it once felt so simple. Who knew that a job in a kiosk could be so engaging? Check out Papers, Please. In at number 14 we have Hotline Miami. There are lots of things that were great in the 1980s. The music was great, the fashion was interesting to say the least, and everyone was super into neon. Well, all these things are represented in Hotline Miami, a game that really leans into the Miami Vice theme and offers a fast-paced mission format where the player must move fast, taking out targets in a variety of creative ways. This is a top-down shooter title with a killer soundtrack, incredible level design, a wide variety of different combat options and playstyles, plus it's super accessible but challenging to master, which is exactly what you want. So if you want to embrace the 80s in the goriest way possible, Hotline Miami is your dream ticket. In at number 15 we have Minecraft. It may be hard for younger generations to ever believe that Minecraft was anything less than the global phenomenon that it is today. However, I myself remember the days where Mojang was taking subscriptions from players to play Minecraft via a web browser extension. However, from humble beginnings, this game continued to grow, and with the acquisition by Microsoft, Minecraft has become one of the most profitable projects in gaming history. This game is not just an incredible sandbox for both survival gamers and creative gamers, but it has also become a hub for creative developers to create games within projects like Hypixel, for example. It has become an educational resource also that is now used to teach kids coding and, quite frankly, we are excited to see where Minecraft goes next. We know one thing is for sure though, the game's trajectory is still on the up and we see no reason to believe that it will change anytime soon. So now is as good a time as any to jump into Minecraft. In at number 16 we have the Stanley Parable. Speaking of games that blossomed from a small seed, the Stanley Parable was merely a mod for a popular title, Half-Life 2. However, this metagame would become so popular that it would justify a mainstream release on Steam, allowing the gaming community at large to experience this incredible, strange, and unique brand of storytelling and design based around freedom and player choice. This title would see you play as office droid Stanley, who wants to break free from the monotony of his simple, boring office job. However, how this decision pans out will depend on what decisions you make, your playstyle, how keen you are to explore, and your ability to think outside the box. This game, much like Undertale, is a satirical one that pokes fun at the gaming industry at large and does so with aplomb. It's not a game per se, however it's an experience that will stay with you long after you step away from this one. So if you want to break free from the confines of traditional gaming tropes, this one's for you. In at number 17 we have Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is an isometric RPG that sees you play as a detective that has drunk himself into a stupor, has amnesia, and must piece together who he is, all the while trying to solve a murder case that he has been assigned. As you can imagine, hilarity ensues, but once you get a feel for the world and the people around you, the game really opens up and shows you the scope of this project. Disco Elysium has a traditional RPG effect done differently. You have complex builds, player choice, dice rolls, quests, side quests, tough decisions, and all the usual D&D-esque tropes that you'll find in traditional D&D. Yet this is presented in a realistic context with no combat to speak of. Plus the richness of the lore, the setting, the writing, and the voice acting in the Final Cut edition is second to none. Then to top it all off, this game has a Renaissance painting style art direction that is unlike anything else out there. In short, I have no problem stating that this is the best traditional modern RPG in over a decade, and if you haven't played it, you won't regret in doing so. And at number 18 we have Cave Story. Okay, so earlier we stated that Braid was perhaps the first indie game to break the mold. However, you could argue that Cave Story is perhaps the first ever indie game produced, or at least the first one that has ever been referred to as an indie game. Cave Story is a Japanese indie game produced way back in 2004, which took aspects of Metroidvania titles and adapted this tried and tested format to offer a new combat system allowing players to change playstyles on the fly. It may seem primitive in the light of 2023, however, without this game blazing a trail, we would probably not have seen similar games of this nature, games like Hollow Knight and Ori and the Will of the Wisps to name a few. So if you want a history lesson on how the first seeds of indie gaming were sown, you need to check out Cave Story. In at number 19 we have FTL, Faster Than Light. Next up we have a game that breaks you out of the Earth's atmosphere to travel into the deepest recesses of space in search of galactical treasure and adventure. Faster Than Light is a game that hands you a little spaceship, a ragtag crew of star explorers, and nudges you in the right direction with each journey you set off on to be different from the last. You see, this game presents the player with a procedurally generated path through space, and the player's job is to manage their crew, strategize how to deal with threats like space pirates, plan their route through deep space, and manage resources accordingly so that you can upgrade your ship and see as much of the final frontier as you possibly can. I'm making this pixelated simulator sound a little grandiose, but in truth, it does give the illusion of depth and infinite possibilities by its design. The player never knows how each run will go, what challenges will await them, and therefore, one run will need a player to think differently and strategize accordingly when compared to the last. Some may complain that the success is primarily ruled by RNG, but we say, leave your cynicism at the door just this once and check out this pocket-sized space opera for yourself. In at number 20 we have Journey. If there was one game that personally opened my eyes not only to the value of indie games as a collective within the gaming industry, but also that games could be considered as a work of art, then Journey is that one. This game burst onto the scene in 2012 and blew critics and gamers away with its incredible presentation and art style. It's rare that a developer can have gameplay take a backseat and not suffer as a result, but with Journey, the The sheer pageantry of the overall experience is enough to keep players thoroughly engaged for the short run of this title. This game has won countless awards for its incredible art style, its enthralling soundtrack, its dialogue-free storytelling ability, and it also garnered praise for its subtle multiplayer aspects. Then you throw in the incredible set pieces like the intense slide through the ruins against the sun-soaked backdrop, or the dark depths immediately after with monsters waiting in the shadows, and you have a finished product that more than justifies its Game of the Year status. This game only takes about 2 hours to see through from start to finish. However, when you finish this one, you will feel like you've just went on a monumental adventure, and the experience will stay with you long after the credits roll. This game has lived rent-free in my head for the best part of a decade now, and I doubt it will ever get orders to vacate, so consider this an endorsement to play this one as soon as you can. In at number 21 we have Rocket League. It's hard to believe that Psyonix, the creators of Rocket League, were once struggling indie game developers, especially since Rocket League has gone on to become a staple of the esports community and has attracted millions of players since its launch in 2015. However, before Rocket League, there was super acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars, which is a mouthful, and I would wager contributed to the poor commercial success the first time around. However, at the second time of asking, Rocket League was born and has continued to provide players with one of the most innovative and chaotic sports games on the market. Who would have thought that combining soccer and RC cars would have worked so well? This game has continued to grow in popularity as time has went on, with the RLCS competition series offering huge prizes and eternal glory for the teams who compete and win, plus for the casual player, the game is constantly receiving updates, new modes, new maps, new content, and cosmetic items. Rocket League is a stellar multiplayer experience and single-handedly galvanised the sporting game genre in a time where Madden, FIFA, PES, NBA 2K and other entities were running out of ideas. Psyonix seized their opportunity, and now that Rocket League is a free-to-play game, you should too. In at number 22 we have The Forest. I'll be honest, this one may feel a little bit out of place amongst the indie gaming juggernauts on the list, but bias be damned, I'm slotting it in here anyway, because in my opinion, this is the best indie survival game ever made, and I include the likes of DayZ, Rust, Valheim, and many others on that list. The Forest is a game that sees the player crash land on a mysterious island with your son Timmy, and against all odds, you actually survive, awakening to see a man doused in blood kidnapping your boy. Your overarching goal here is to get your son back and get off the island. However, before you can do that, you'll need to gather yourself, get a lay of the land, and try to survive in spite of the ravenous, cannibal inhabitants of the island. The Forest has a map that is jam-packed with little details, areas of interest, fun weapons, and crafting components and clues which help you understand your surroundings a lot better. So much so that you may be building an extravagant base, locating the passengers of the crash, and embracing the cannibal culture so much that you forgot you have a son to save. Don't feel bad though, we all neglected Timmy to build a stellar base on the island, and now is a great time to get into this one, as Sons of the Forest, a direct sequel, is on the way. So do yourself a favour and check out this indie survival gem. And at number 23 we have Among Us. Many will remember this game as the one that kept us sane and entertained throughout that horrible global lockdown period in 2020. However, what many don't know is that Among Us was a game that had existed for the best part of 2 years at that point. The social deduction game had received modest reviews and success upon release. However, up until mid-2020, this game averaged about 300 players a day. Then, when we were all assigned to our homes, this game suddenly became a beacon of sunshine in an otherwise drab and bleak day-to-day routine. Since then, the game has never looked back and remains one of the most popular multiplayer gaming experiences around. This game places you on a spaceship and asks you to complete a series of mundane and rudimentary tasks to fix the ship. Do so and you win the game. However, within your crew, a select amount of players will be assigned the role of the imposter, who is gradually killing off the crew one by one. So equally, it is your job to catch the killer and boot them off the ship before they whittle you down to nothing. This game is a hoot to play with friends and really brings out the detectives and compulsive liars within the group. Be sure to check this one out when you next have a social gaming night planned. In at number 24 we have Untitled Goose Game. Some may feel that this is the equivalent of sticking Goat Simulator into a list of indie games' most prestigious titles. However, we would argue that when it comes to pure unadulterated fun that is accessible for all, there are few games that can match the sheer joy and silliness packed into Untitled Goose Game. This title sees you play the role of the titular goose as you run around a quaint little village honking at the top of your lungs and causing general mayhem. Each area represents a new challenge and a new checklist of tasks you need to complete to cause havoc and upset the population of this tranquil little English village. The game itself is a very simple one, as are the mechanics and the puzzles within. However, it's the humour, the unbridled joy, and the freedom to play your own way that makes Untitled Goose Games so appealing. That and the fact that it is one of those games that you could show to your non-gaming friends and family and they would instantly get involved in the action. The overall experience is short but sweet, so if you want a quick and quirky indie that is well worth the price of admission, then this is certainly one you have to consider. And in at number 25, we have What Remains of Edith Finch. Lastly, we have what is arguably the most quirky and beloved walking simulator within the medium of gaming. In this game, you return to the Finch residence to get some answers about the tragic past of each family member and try to understand if there really has been a curse placed on your family. As you travel through this marvel of architecture, you get an in-depth look into the life and eventual fate of each family member, presented through incredible stories which offer unique gameplay mechanics, making each snippet of this title feel like a new game within a game. Gameception. The writing within this title is superb, the art style and environmental storytelling is top notch, which we have come to expect from modern walking sims. Plus, while some of the mechanics are wonky, to say the least, the variety they offer throughout this journey keeps the player thoroughly engaged and never lets the game feel stale. The game is excellently paced, doesn't overstay its welcome, and offers some of the most jovial and heartbreaking moments within gaming in equal measure. It's high praise, but it's very much warranted, so please check out this phenomenal game. So there you have it, guys, Indie Game Culture's all-time 25 best indie games. There are so many indie experiences out there that defy the odds, offering the most compelling experiences ever despite their limited budgets and resources. Now, while 25 entries only scratch the surface in terms of the masses of great indie games currently on the market, we feel that this is the cream of the crop and gives you a great foundation to build from and branch out to your own tastes within the niche of indie gaming. We hope that this list serves you well, and if there are any games that you feel should have made it in the all-time 25, be sure to let us know in the comments below. This has been Indie Game Culture, I've been Callum, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.